This is cool color.
May not be the perfect pie, but this book, The Perfect Pumpkin Pie, is great. This book, The Perfect Pumpkin Pie by Dennis Cazet, it's a picture book, but it's also a modern fantasy. It is the story of Old Man Wilkerson, and he loves pie. He loves it so much. In fact, he's having a conversation with his wife about how much he loves pie, and she tells him, there's no pie after you die. And suspiciously, that same night, after he says he will not die if there's no pie after death, he dies eating a piece of pie. And his wife buries him in their yard. And then she mysteriously moves away for some reason. The new people that move into the house are a grandma and her grandson. And one night she decides to make a pumpkin pie, and she leaves it on the windowsill to dry. And as she's leaving it on the windowsill to dry, her grandson sees a ghost. And the ghost comes into the house, and this is what Old Man Wilkerson says. I'll show you the picture of what he looks like, and this is what he says. It's kind of the same thing he says every night. So this is the most scary picture of him as a ghost. But there's all kinds of other pictures of him as a ghost. This one's one of my favorites of him, the chef ghost. But this is what he says. He kind of has the same thing he says every time. He says, pumpkins, pumpkins, pumpkin pie, I must have one before I die. It must be round and brown as toast, or I'll haunt this house, a hungry ghost. It must be perfect, or a ghost I'll stay and haunt this house and never ever go away. Sorry, you have to add a little bit of drama. So this story is a modern fantasy as well as a picture book because it has elements that are real, but obviously because it has a ghost, it is a fantasy. The thing I love about it is, yes, it's kind of a scary story, but it's so different from a lot of other Halloween type stories because a lot of Halloween stories now are cutesy wootsy, and that's fun, but sometimes it's nice to have something different. My girls have not been scared of this book, even though it's kind of a scary story of a ghost coming back to life. But there's a couple reasons why they're not scary. First of all, the pictures are beautifully in color. You can see they are not really scary in nature because they're not dark. They're beautifully colorful. The other reason why this book is not as scary as it could be is the grandma. The grandma is a sassy, no-nonsense grandma. And so she says things to the ghost like, don't you ever knock. And one time he's going through his whole spiel because every time she doesn't make the perfect pumpkin pie, if it's too runny or the crust isn't brown enough or anything else wrong with it, then he complains and says he's going to keep haunting her. Anyway, so eventually she reaches a point where he's saying his whole pumpkin pie thing. And she's like, yeah, we've heard it all before. Come in and have some pie. I'll let you guys read this to decide or see whether or not Grandma is ever successful in making the perfect pumpkin pie and if Old Man Wilkerson ever stops haunting them. So pick it up at your library.